Welcome to those who are joining us. We're going to wait just a minute or so to let people hop on. We're so excited. If you want, you can put in the chat where you're coming from today, what city, what state. We'd love to know where you're joining us from. I see we've got some Kentucky folks. So fun. San Antonio, Texas. Amazing. We just hired a Fusion member from Houston area in Texas. So I'm learning all the Texas things. I'm based in Chicago, so it's covering all the states. That's great. Well, we can go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for joining us, and for those who are joining us on the recording later. My name is Lauren Hansen. I am the Church Engagement Manager for Fusion USA. And we're so excited to have Michelle Tepper here with us from a bit warmer state than Chicago, I think, in Florida. And I'll have you introduce yourself just in a minute, Michelle, but I'd love to orient everyone. If you're not familiar with Zoom webinar, it's a bit different than Zoom meetings, and there is a Q&A function either on the top if you're using an iPad or the bottom on your laptop. And throughout the webinar, please feel free to submit your questions that way or in the chat, and we'll get to as many as we can following the webinar. We'd love to personalize the context for you. So any questions that come up, please, throughout the webinar, feel free to submit them in there, and we'll have some time at the end. And then for those who might not be familiar with Fusion, we're newer to the United States. Fusion is based in the United Kingdom. It's been a part of the United Kingdom for 25 years and just became a part of the USA in 2020. Our whole vision and mission is to help college students find hope in Jesus and home in the local church. And so we equip local churches with tools and confidence to strengthen and reach and disciple college students. So that is our focus. And we have been longtime friends with Alpha. So it's really neat. Alpha was also birthed in the United Kingdom. And so Michelle will share a little bit more about that in a minute, but we kind of consider ourselves cousins. And so it's really exciting to see both organizations spreading into the United States. And I'm gonna introduce Michelle. Michelle is the network director in Florida for Alpha USA. She is in Central Florida, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, and has a sweet husband and 2 daughters. So Michelle, I'd love to have you share anything with our audience as we just start about who you are.
Yeah, so nice to meet all of you guys. I am a big fan of Fusion. I lived in the UK for 13 years. I was introduced both to Alpha and to Fusion in my time, first as a student, and then I was a university student pastor in the UK for 7 years. So I have a huge heart for filling our campuses with spots where people can meet Jesus. That's how my husband and I met. We were both studying theology, and then we ended up, God changed all of our plans. First changed all of our plans by us kind of falling in love with each other. And then we went into student ministry together, beginning of marriage, beginning of ministry. Still to this day, God is doing amazing things in our lives, but we would look back at those first 7 years of marriage and ministry as being probably the most special formative times, both for our personal relationship and our call into what God's had us be doing with sharing the good news. So love student work and can't wait to just hear more of your questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michelle. I love that you're immersed in that culture, because I do feel like there's in this season such a connection between especially like England and the United States, and just it seems like God's doing something in both the nations and collectively together. So it's neat that that's a part of your story as well. I'd love to start just for those that might be brand new to Alpha. What is Alpha? What is Alpha?
Yeah, good question. So, at its very core, Alpha is a series of interactive sessions that introduce people to the basics of the Christian faith, really through asking big questions of life. And there's four key things that wherever Alpha is run around the world, you'll see. You'll see at every session, there's time for food, for people to gather together around a table, have great hospitality. Then you listen to a talk. Usually, those are through a series of videos that keep being updated. They're really up to date, contextualized for different countries and different regions, as many languages as Netflix is available in, which is what we like to say. And then, really, the most important part of Alpha is that you have a lengthy time of discussion where everyone is free to voice their real opinion about what they really heard without correction or being forced to conform to one point of view, where people are listened to and cared for, where people can admit their biggest doubts, fears, and they're still welcome, actually encouraged to come back every single week. And then for every Alpha course, we like to call it, because these sessions happen usually between, depending on, especially if you're doing student work, anywhere between an 8-week to all the way up to maybe a 12-week journey. There's either a weekend away or an Alpha day or some extended time together where people get introduced to the person of God through the Holy Spirit and have a chance to have an encounter and move from just thinking about God as an idea into addressing God as a real person who wants to interact in their life. Alpha started about 40 years ago in England. It was originally a course for new believers, and the man who's kind of like the face of Alpha globally now, Nicky Gumbel, was given the course, and he said, I feel like with a few tweaks, we could make this a place where people who wouldn't say they want to hear about the basics of the Christian faith, they're not sure about if they're welcome in the church or if they even believe there's a God, where they could be welcome to be took through these big questions of life and introduced gently to discover who Jesus is and be introduced to him. That revolutionized the course. It's now in over 150 different denominations, over 200 different languages. It's been run in countries around the world. 30 million people have had the opportunity to be introduced to Jesus Christ through Alpha today. And that's just exciting to be a part of.
Wow, that is incredible. Just the scope, and I just love the how easy to use it is. And I know you'll talk like a little bit more about the process, but we were just talking a little bit before, the videos are stunning, like so well done, and just opening up. I feel like sometimes media can open up hearts to just for people to receive and to be vulnerable and ask their questions. So yeah, so excited that it has such a scope. Could you share a little bit about Alpha in the United States? Like, what are you seeing? How is it working? Anything about Alpha in the USA?
Yeah, definitely. So for the last 2 years, I've gotten the chance to journey with churches here, specifically in Florida, as they've either found out about Alpha for the first time or thought, actually, we've been using Alpha and now we really want to press into maybe running Alpha for youth as well, or moving into college campuses. What I've seen over and over again is what we call Alpha creating a front porch for the church, right? So church is the house of God. I love churches these days. A lot of different churches will say welcome home when you come inside, but my home here, I like to say that I'm really welcoming, that I would let anyone inside, but I have this big subdivision I'm part of, and not everybody in the subdivision would feel comfortable just walking in the door because they're like, I don't know you, I don't know your family, I don't know if you're safe, who are you? But if I'm outside on my front porch, as I will, it makes me not only visible but accessible and gets me out of the bubble of my four walls and creates a place of hospitality. So Alpha helps to create a space that's not directly in the church. It's somewhere like a third space between the church and the community, where there's radical hospitality. People belong long before, or if they ever believe the same way you do. There's authentic listening. So yes, there's a talk, and I do believe with Lauren that our videos are, up to date, stunning. We keep reproducing them so that we don't age out. But the most important part is that there's space for people to be listened to. So your hosts and helpers, we call them on Alpha, not traditional teachers or leaders like in some other Bible studies. They are trained to facilitate discussion, to open up the real heart questions that guests have on Alpha. And it becomes this journey where people just share who they are, where they're really at. And because they are loved well, they're suddenly, their mind is open up, their heart is open up to, if this person who represents Jesus can listen to me and care for me, maybe they're God will listen to me and care for me in that way. So I see churches across the United States using Alpha to create that third space, because often we don't have that in church, right? There's beautiful, incredible encounters that churches have every Sunday. And I think God will continue and always work through those. There's different types of evangelism. I was part of an apologetics ministry for many years. I will always believe that that's an important key, digging into big questions of life, looking at the evidence for the gospel. But we don't have a lot of these spaces that just create like forums, an open table, if you will, where everyone's welcome, where they can listen, they can be listened to, and they're invited to experience Jesus in kind of a multi-sensory way. And I'll end with this. A church in Lakeland, Florida recently said that they've been using Alpha for the last 2 years. And I love what they said. They said, Michelle, what we have seen with Alpha is, yes, we have seen an influx of people who never knew Jesus come to know him. And we're rejoicing in that. Their baptisms have gone up every single time. New people are added. But they say we have also seen people activated, not afraid of sharing their faith anymore, suddenly opening up their houses, becoming that place in the neighborhood where all of the street, all of the neighbors know we can go there because they're a place of love, they're a place of hope, they're a place of peace. And so Alpha is a space that helps people get introduced to Jesus, but it also revitalizes the culture of a Christian community so that people are radical in their hospitality, authentic in their listening, and dependent on the Holy Spirit through prayer to do the work in their friends' lives, not thinking it all depends on their right answers.
That's so powerful. I love that it has this evangelistic missional like side to it, but then also this discipleship really for like formation and in discipleship. That's beautiful. And yeah, so exciting to hear the impact that it's having, and even just it sounds like ripple effects, like yeah, in the communities. So today we're going to specifically focus on college student mission, and how Alpha can play a role in that. Why do you feel like college student mission is important, just like in general? And then we can talk about Alpha's potential impact with college students.
Yeah. I mean, well, I'm definitely biased since 7 years of doing college student ministry, me and my husband. But what I have always thought was so important about college student ministry is you have two extremes that usually come in contact with students. You have those students that maybe like myself, like I was born on a Sunday in a pastor's family, in church the next Sunday, knew all the things, could say all the things, sing all the things, believed all the things. But then suddenly somewhere around college, when is this just something I can put on repeat, or does this mean anything of relevance to my life? And I had a real season where really I unpicked, deconstructed is now the word, right? Where I just didn't know if what I was raised with was my own. And I had to really burn it all to the ground to see whether I could reconstruct it and whether it would stand again if I looked for things. And you come in contact with a lot of students like that. They kind of move from their safety of their Christian families and church. I don't think they're doing anything bad. I don't think they're even trying to say, oh, I want to change, but this is their first time of freedom, intellectual freedom, physical freedom, community freedom, and a whole new level. And in that freedom, they're pushing against anything to say, will things stand when I push against them? I do believe that the Christian faith always stands no matter how hard it's pushed, because Jesus is the rock. But I think that college students have that time. And then you have the other side where college students who have no background in the Christian faith whatsoever, or maybe have no background, and on top of that, from what culture says these days, have a really wrong view of Christians and the Christian faith. They think all of the things, that Christianity is homophobic, it's exclusive, it's racist, it's you fill in the blank, and I don't want anything having to do with a faith or a God like that. Well, neither do I. And Christian campus ministry and churches that are reaching out to college students have an incredible opportunity to say, let me introduce you to who Jesus really is. And usually the students that have no background whatsoever have that same type of new freedom. And maybe they have everything they've always wanted. They're the top of their school. They are excelling in sports. You fill in the blanks, but then they still feel, is there more to life than this? And that's a wonderful opportunity to show what Jesus offers, the beautiful good news, to students of both sides. So I think it's really important.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like that college age is when they're asking those big life questions. And I know even developmentally in the stages, that's like when they're thinking about who am I? What do I believe? All of those things. And in college, I feel like even the college setting is that growth and learning environment. So it's so perfect. Why do you think Alpha could be especially useful for this age range for college student mission?
Yeah. Well, let me give you some kind of like nerdy statistics first, and then maybe
Yes,
share a story if I
yes,
could.
that's
So,
great.
Alpha has teamed up with Barna to do some studies about what it looks like to kind of rethink, re envision evangelism for our day and age. And specifically when it comes to Gen Z, which is our college students right now. For Gen Z to even want to open up and engage in faith discussions, even though they're very curious, they need a couple of things. They need a place where they're sure that people are interested in them for who they are and want to journey with them for their life, not just kind of tick a box to say, I shared my faith today. Do you want to become a Christian? They want to speak about faith where they feel like they can share what they really believe in and aren't forced on the spot to make a conclusion or to change their mind. They also want a space where they can feel like they're loved and not judged. And they can share exactly who they are and they're still welcome again and again. And I do believe that Alpha over the past 4 decades, it hasn't really changed because of the makeup of it, the makeup of come to a table where you're welcome. Let's share food. Let's get to know each other and let's do it over. Lots of people at first, and especially college students, right? Because semesters and there's exams, and you only have college students in sometimes for a set amount of times. They're like 11 weeks, 8 weeks. Why would anybody want to do this? But the invitation to journey, to have community, to be fed both emotionally, spiritually, relationally is really compelling when you're rushing and just trying to achieve. And so much of college is like that, rushing from thing to thing, making your bills and trying to achieve your grades. And Alpha creates that space where we're interested in just getting to know you. And we're so interested, we're going to give you a space to come and be fed and get to know you for more than 2 months. You don't have to come the whole time, but come and try it out. That's actually incredibly compelling for college students. And then that space to voice what they really think. And like in Alpha, the person who seems to be having the most amount of problems with the topic, problems is maybe the wrong word, like maybe the angriest or the most skeptic, or really voices the roughest opinion afterwards, the host and the helper, you're encouraged to encourage that person more than anything else. And that's what college students and Gen Z specifically needs to be able to open up and engage in deeper life conversations. They want to know, do you really want me? And you want to hear my point of view, even if I never agree with you. So I feel like Alpha speaks into that because the values haven't changed with radical hospitality, authentic listening to show someone that they're loved. And the reason we can do that and still be absolutely sure that it's a beautiful tool to lead people to Jesus is a key component in Alpha. And we say all the time, without prayer, Alpha will fail. So before you launch Alpha, during a time that you're running an Alpha course, and long after, you're praying by name for all of the guests, all of the students you're engaged with, knowing one course, one meal, or 11 of them is never going to make an eternal difference in this student. But Lord, you will, and you can, and He does.
Oh, so powerful. I would love to hear stories. I think sometimes it creates vision for people of what's possible. So any stories just that you'd love to share today?
Yeah, one is actually about a dear friend and soon to be former colleague. She's just had her first baby and she's going to transition into being a full time mom at home. But her name's Melanie. She grew up in Chile. Her parents were missionaries, church planting, was there till she was a teenager, and then moved to Central Florida at the age of 12. Started having all of these cultural questions, collisions, change of everything, transitioned into UCF, University of Central Florida, which is now, I think, our nation's largest campus. It's even surpassed Arizona State University with the amount of students that's there. And she just had a crisis of faith. Like everything fell apart and she felt ashamed and embarrassed to voice it to her family and to her church community because she was the missionary kid. She was the church planter. So at the end of college, she moved back to Chile, basically to have a crisis of faith and say, I'm too embarrassed to wrestle through these questions. And what she said is that she found the community she was looking for in Chile, in the bars, working as a waitress with lots of other people that didn't have answers. And although it didn't really leave her fulfilled, it gave her safety to keep asking these questions. I'll fast forward about a year after that journey. She decided to move back to the States, relocated to New York City, and thought this is going to finish off my faith forever. And she was invited to something called Alpha. And at Alpha, I want to read some of her words because they were just so beautiful the way she put it. She said this. She said, "My expectation is that I would completely lose my faith and it would be over. But I heard about Alpha, ended up volunteering on a team, even though she wasn't sure where she stood about her faith. I sat at a table full of laughter and love where doubts were welcome, but by people who were anchored in their faith. And I felt such compassion for my younger self in college because I thought this is the table that I needed back then. Tables that are loving, curious, and compassionate need to exist, and Christians need to be at them. Alpha is hosting tables that are safe spaces for people to walk out their faith. And one of the greatest honors of my life now to this point, where I know who Jesus is to sit at these tables and listen to the pain that other students are carrying." And so Melanie is a perfect picture. Yes, she found Jesus just after college, but for her, she has dedicated her life really to ministry to college students at these tables, because the table is a forum where people can just share their pain, share their breakdown, and Jesus will meet them. So that's one story with Melanie. I don't know how much time you have, if you want another story or.
Yeah, that's so powerful. Yeah, let's hear another one.
So another one is a girl called Rachel that I met in my time in Oxford, but I'm still in contact with her. She came to an Alpha course and really was just from a family background where she hadn't really explored the Christian faith. Was that person on a table where you thought, I don't know if anything is happening, because she was just silent week after week after week. And it wasn't really until after Alpha finished that she then invited myself and some of the other students that had been at Alpha into her hall. And she was like, "I'm going to have a dinner party. Would you come and be at my dinner party?" And we're like, "Okay, sure." We've gotten to know you, Rachel. At this dinner party she hosted in her own dorm, is what it would be in the States. They call them the halls. I don't know, maybe they call them here in the UK too. Um, she invited all of her friends that didn't know Jesus, shared her story of what happened on Alpha, how she found Jesus to be a real person that changed her life, and then invited all of her friends that came from her hall onto the next Alpha with her. So many of her friends came to faith in the next 2 years because she was a first year. So her whole life was changed. Her entire hall was changed. Rachel now, she ended up moving to the United States. She lives just outside of Seattle. Her and her husband helped revitalize a church. They've been there 10 years now. She got ordained and she runs Alpha in Seattle.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's so wild. When you went to that dinner party, did you have any idea like that's what she was going to do?
No, she was like, "It's kind of a Christmas party and come." And I was like, "Sure."
So,
And I was like, "Whoa, what's going on here? This is a full on like evangelistic effort." Yeah.
wow. Oh, that's so powerful. I think when we do small group training, we always say like don't discount the introverts or
Yeah.
those that don't speak because you have no idea what they're processing internally and just even giving space for them to just be. And oh, that's such a great story. I love that so much. Well, I know we have church leaders and pastors that kind of oversee church discipleship and in their church, and giving away leadership it can be challenging. And so, and even just like trying something new. And so, I assume that when you try something new, there's some challenges. So, anything that you want to name, or pitfalls, or things just to watch in maybe starting Alpha, or letting students lead through
Yeah.
that.
I would say this is with students or any age that would be trying Alpha. What we say again and again is you don't kind of just spring open and say, "Who wants to run Alpha?" Anyone can sign up, because Alpha is very different to a Bible study or a church led ministry. You really want to be inviting people in. And inviting them to be hosts or helpers. And the way you do that invitation process does two things. You get to know the person. So yes, you're handing away leadership to them, but you've gotten to know them. And the way that I have identified different Alpha hosts through students over the years, because we used to run Alpha multiple times a year and it was mostly run by the students in their halls, is you want the students that they are the natural gatherers. They're the ones that when you say invite your friends, they're inviting all their friends. They might not be the one running the Bible study. They might not be the one at the front that's giving their testimony all the time, but they've always got a crew with them. They're the person as well that knows how to make people feel welcome. And the best test is, would you let your best friend or your family member or the college student in your life that you've been praying for that doesn't quite know Jesus, would you want them to be 8 weeks with a student that you're empowering to lead? If there's any doubt in your mind that that will go well, that they will not be welcomed, that they will be listened to, then that might not be the right person to lead. So basically, you think, will I entrust the person that's furthest from Jesus in my life that I love with this person? If you can say a yes to that, then they're a great leader to empower. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a really great kind of framework or guideline. Yeah, yeah, that's good. Any other things, just as starting something new, running groups, that just things to even note that would be helpful?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that we did a lot of work kind of just pre-COVID and definitely right after COVID to make Alpha easy to run for anybody. And
Mhm.
most of that work means we put all of the resources you need to be a self-starter and to train a team right on our website, run.alphausa.org. So if you would like to give Alpha a try or maybe empower students to run it, you could quite easily mentor, coach yourself and the students through it, because it's basically 2 videos to watch. There's a video about how to facilitate these small groups with Alpha, and then how to do prayer training and prayer ministry in a naturally supernatural way. So much of Alpha is about being listened to, but also encounter with the real God. And that can be a scary word depending on what background you're from. I've been all different backgrounds. We're currently in the Episcopal Church. We were in the Anglican Church before, and different people have different levels. And what I like about Alpha is we serve the whole church, multi-denominations. And so we give training for how to present these moments of encounter with the real God in a, I would say, ecumenical, gentle, and naturally supernatural way. So you're kind of discipling student leaders to be doing that within Alpha, but then becoming a source of that on their campus as well, right?
Mhm.
All of us are called to be spaces where people can encounter the living God. And so you can kind of mentor and equip your students to be those spaces. And we've done a lot of the work for you, and we just have it on our website. So I would say definitely use the resources that we put on there, and then you can just run Alpha.
That's so great. I know it's so um, it's so simple almost in how to get started, how to run a group. You can put all your info in. You can use videos or scripts if you want to teach yourself. Any other things about like the practicals of running the 8 or 11 weeks?
Yeah. So the videos I would highly recommend. Back in the day when I first was introduced to Alpha, we didn't have those. And so we were always running them through live talks. And that can be hard to keep up. What I like about the videos that we have is that you can run Alpha multiple times a year and always be creating a different season for evangelism within your campus ministry or within your church, because you just plug and play. And with the plug and play, another thing is that students are more, I think anybody, but especially students, they're more willing to disagree and say what they really feel if they're disagreeing with a video that they've just watched, rather than disagreeing with the Christian student that they want to be friends with after Alpha, or the Christian campus minister. So it really creates a safe buffer for disagreement, which everyone's able to do. I would say as well, some form of hospitality. You don't have to serve a full meal all of the time, especially college students, right? I've done popcorn bars. We've done cereal bars. Pizza is always a winner with students. Light bites, desserts, something like that. Just some form, even like coffee and donuts in the morning, some form of hospitality. You know what that is for a student to feel like you were thought of ahead of time. We want you to have this enjoyable. It's a really important element, but don't get bogged down on it being a full meal. And same thing with what we call the extended time away. If you've maybe heard of Alpha from a couple decades ago, it was always called the weekend away. That can feel daunting. If a student is doing it in a hall or a church, you don't have to take everybody away from a weekend. If you can and you have the budget for it, go for it. I feel like any type of student retreat is always fun. I have great memories with student ministry of doing it. But in the last few years, we've seen students in their halls run it over a morning. They show a couple sessions back to back on the Holy Spirit. They play some volleyball or throw burrito extreme, have lunch and breakfast. And so feel free to adapt it to your context on campus. Another thing is that for churches that are considering doing it and maybe don't have a full presence on campus or a campus ministry that they're already linked up to, we have a new kind of pre-alpha course called Ever Wonder, and you can find that on our website as well. They're shorter, they're only 15 minutes, and they kind of start with questions about identity, belonging, love, purpose. There's 3 of them. Some churches have found that a really good bridge into starting campus ministry or reviving campus ministry or getting kind of students that have been interested on campus maybe closer into the church community is they will run Ever Wonder for 3 weeks at the freshman week, and just have a presence, and then run Alpha back at their church campus. And it's a kind of easy bridge because the students have bought in. This is cool caliber videos. You're here on campus. Now I'm willing to try out something at your church as well.
That's awesome. That we do, encourage churches to even prayer walk campuses and get to know people, because God will inevitably connect you with someone on campus. And so I love how that can be a quick bridge and then getting them connected into the local body. That's brilliant. Well, we have a practitioner from Florida as well. Her name's Pam. I'm going to bring her up. Pam ran Alpha this semester with a few students, and so we just wanted to give her space to share her story. She'll be popping in just a moment. Should see her face. Amazing. Welcome, Pam. Pam, will you just share a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and what you did with Alpha this term?
Sure. So I am a pastor in Melbourne, Florida, and this semester was added to the parachurch, the Protestant campus ministry at our local university. And so as a part of that, I was asked to lead a Bible study. And I'd heard about Alpha, so I thought, I'm going to try this and start this. And I didn't honestly prepare well enough, if I'm really honest. I didn't give it enough lead time, because once I started really looking through the materials, which exactly like Michelle said, were super easy to navigate on the website. It was amazingly easy. I decided to do the script version. I'm comfortable speaking, so I wanted to tailor it and just have the freedom to have it be a little interactive along the way. And so it's taken me quite a bit of prep time each week, if I'm really honest, because just reading through the entire script and personalizing it to my own stories and my context and everything. But it's been great. It's been great. And now I have all those edited scripts, to use in the future. But just everything on the website has been super easy to use. What I found, because I didn't give myself enough lead time and because I didn't know what I was getting into, what I found is the students who've shown up have been students with faith backgrounds, students who wanted to be a part of something. And there's a couple of freshman guys who started the very beginning of the semester who have remained consistent throughout the whole time. And then a couple of others have added on, who now I have these 4 guys. So 3 freshmen and 1 PhD student who have been super consistent. And others have come and go and, come and gone along the way. But the time has been just this beautiful opportunity to see them open up. And the really shy one who barely ever talks now is more open with saying what he thinks. And it's been a beautiful journey along the way. I was telling Lauren yesterday that this last weekend was when we did our day Alpha, and because the guys all live on campus or close to campus, and I didn't want to do it there in the place, the Faith Center where we normally meet. I wanted it to be a little more, I don't know, just a little more personal kind of atmosphere. So I invited them to my house. My husband and my daughter were gone for the day, kind of in and out. They popped in and said hello and left again. But so the guys came and we had lunch, we had coffee, we sat around and talked a little more, just about how they came to their majors and their programs and everything. It was absolutely beautiful. It was such a beautiful time. And I could just see them bonding with one another. Like they don't have a ton of crossover on campus, but just bonding with one another, caring about each other in a different way, just to have that extended period of time together. And we closed our day with this lovely prayer time together, just sitting on my couches in my living room and praying together. And each one of them prayed just this simple prayer of thankfulness. It was a beautiful time, absolutely beautiful time. So I'm really thankful. Honestly, I'm excited about what next semester is going to be. We met yesterday for our last talk, but next week is their exam week, and we're going to meet in the cafeteria for dinner and just talk about what we're going to do next. What does next semester look like? And what I told them is to come next week with thinking about who they want to invite, who in their sphere of influence they want to invite to another session, another course of walking through these questions together. So I'm excited to see what that looks like. One of the things yesterday as we were closing, one of the students, just the way that he was talking, some of his words are so powerful. He said, we have to be faithful to pray and have to be faithful to, to say what God leads us to say. But the Holy Spirit is the one who works. Like he just kept saying that over and over again. We can be confident that God is the one who works, and we're not responsible for how people react or what they say or what their response is. That's not up to us. That God is the one who's working. And he just kept saying that over and over again. I thought this is exactly the way to end the semester of the Alpha. Just this beautiful understanding that we're being faithful to what God has asked us to do, and trusting that God is the one who transforms, that he's the one who moves and acts in people's life. So yeah, it's been a really neat first semester. I didn't know what I was getting myself into, and I'm really thankful for the journey of walking with these guys.
Oh, so powerful. Thank you, Pam, for sharing your experience. I'd love to ask you both, do you find, I know it's Alpha's more evangelistic missional tool, but at least the students that we've been working with, even the ones that are believers, kind of like how you said, Michelle, like there is this, I don't know, almost like need for greater discipleship of like, actually, why do I believe what I believe? And so do you find like Christians are joining as well? And like, is that okay? Or is, like, Michelle, would you recommend like really target people who are just exploring faith?
Yeah, good question. Usually, you see kind of a journey that happens when a campus ministry or a church decides to run Alpha. Even when you cast the vision that this is a course and a perfect space for people who have questions about the Christian faith and are not Christians, you will get at first, most of the time, majority of people that maybe have a Christian faith already and just want to see what Alpha is. Maybe they don't realize they had questions or want to be discipled. And so at first you tend to see, so, and especially, and maybe it's not the same with campus ministries, but when churches run it, like large numbers that go through the first couple of courses, usually the ratio is more Christians than guests that are not Christians. And then there's this like tipping point that when you run it, we say for 3 years, right? And I would say it would be the same for campus ministry, that if they were running it once a year for 3 years, or maybe once both semesters, twice a year, that where people go, okay, well, maybe we should stop running Alpha because we run it, right? And we don't have the guests. But if you kind of push through on two things, prayer, right? I love the idea of prayer walking your campus. We say that before you run Alpha, we encourage people to run a 21 days of prayer, where every single person that's helping lead Alpha commits for 3 days, for 3 names for 21 days, someone in their life that they want to invite on that next Alpha, people that don't know Jesus. And even if those people don't come to that Alpha course, imagine the fruit of 21 days of prayer for people in your life, that they would encounter Jesus. It's beautiful, right? And so we say pray ahead of time. And usually what happens is there's this usually there's like a tipping point that at like the 3-year mark or third time running alpha, people kind of get it. It sounds like those students already got it, Pam. Like maybe you have people that are ahead of time. They're going, wait a second. Yeah, this was great for me, but this person and that person and that person could have come. And then they start to invite their friends. So that wasn't a perfect answer. I think you can have both, Lauren, and you will have both. But here's where I think it's important is that you need to definitely cast the vision to the Christian students. If you're having, and if and when you have both Christian students and like students that are just searching coming, that you want to create the majority of voice time and questions and sharing time for those students that are furthest away. Because if you have the Christian students that are really, God's doing a work in their life, and that's beautiful, but they're kind of dominating the airspace with the sharing of the Bible verse that meant the most to me, where God broke through here and where I know God's there, then the student that's like the furthest away is like, I can't share anything because these are all Christians and they think the same. So I think it'd be really important to cast the vision to your Christian students. And this is part of the training that we do online, that you want that space to be for the person that seems to be the furthest. So maybe you're quieter, you're not sharing as much, you're not giving the overly Christian answers all of the time, so that people that have the real questions can really voice their opinions. It's not just an echo chamber.
Oh, that's really, really spot on. Yeah, great wisdom. Pam, as a facilitator, you talked about like wanting to have a little bit more lead time. What would you recommend? Just getting comfortable with the training and materials, and like what would you wished you could have done, or what capacity would people need? And Michelle too, if you have thoughts.
I really want to try the videos going forward, just looking to see what that is. Not having gone through it before, I wanted to have more, honestly, I wanted to have more control. If I'm just really honest, I wanted more control. But it would be, I love what you said, Michelle, just about having this third party that can speak into the students' lives. I wish I would have given myself a couple of weeks. If I would have given myself a couple of weeks from the very beginning of the semester to think and pray and even promote differently, invite students differently. So I'm excited going into next semester. Like these students who, each of these 4 have a relationship with Jesus already, if they can begin praying for people now in the middle of December, when we start back in the middle of January, they will have had 4 weeks of thought and prayer and preparation. And so will I. Like it's amazing to think what God can open up just in the spring semester because of a little more time, a little more prep time. So yeah, and I would think at least a couple of weeks. If you haven't started Alpha, if you have like a date that you want to start, open up as much of the material as you possibly can. Look at some of the training videos. I think the 2 big training videos are like 25 minutes. Like it's not a ton of time. So look at the training videos, look at what all the options are. The scripts are all there on the series material tab on the website. Each of the opening videos are super fun, like street interviews. It's like 1 or 2 minute long, fun little opening video that kind of sets a frame of what possible answers of any of the public might be to a question that's pertinent to the topic. So I have started every single session with those street interview videos because I think it's just really fun. It kind of opens up the possibility. Like these answers are okay for this space, which is great. It's great. So I really like that.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was more than what your question was, Lauren.
No, that was so
I
good.
just wanted to add in that those videos that are street interviews, if you weren't giving live talks, and if you use the videos next time, Pam or for anyone else doing it, those are woven through every single week of Alpha. You will always have those. It's kind of like it's brought in depending on what topic you're covered. So you wouldn't have to preload or find kind of opening talk videos. They're always in every single Alpha video that you play because they really do. They set the stage. We went to Memphis to LA and to New York post-COVID and filmed. It's very diverse, generationally, racially, everything. We ask big questions of life and faith. What does love look like? What does forgiveness look like? Do you believe in the Bible? What's your idea of God? And you get real answers, and they're hilarious. and really, they get really poignant and emotional at times as well. People just really share. They're beautiful.
I love it. Yeah, the artwork is and the content and the people's insights and answers are so powerful. So that's awesome. Just curious, does Alpha work in kind of reaching other religious groups like Hindus, Buddhists, Muslims? Is that kind of a focus, or just for anyone exploring faith?
Yeah, I mean, so I want to make sure I get your question. Like, is it work for people that are of a different faith to come on
Yeah,
it? Of course.
yeah. Have you seen that happen, or is that an intention of Alpha, or yeah?
Yeah, I mean, alpha is meant for anybody from any faith background to no faith background whatsoever. And so, yes, I have seen over the years students from Muslim backgrounds come through the Alpha course, students from Hindu backgrounds come through the Alpha course. And what Alpha has taught me more than anything before is to remember that everyone's journey looks different, right?
Yeah.
So Alpha does not guarantee to anyone by the end of the Alpha course, X amount of people on your table will say, I am a Christian. However, what we have done, studies around the globe, so 200 different churches around the world, churches or campuses, there were organizations too. We journeyed with them and studied them running Alpha over a year and looked at their survey results, because we highly recommend you giving a survey to the students or the guests that come on it saying, how do you identify before Alpha? Do you identify as the same faith after Alpha? What was your experience? And for those that filled out, the participants that filled out those surveys, over 86% of people that started out Alpha, now this is globally, so includes people from Muslim background, from Hindu background that are on the course, that identify as skeptic or not a Christian after going through the Alpha course. 86% identify as a follower of Jesus, which is beautiful.
Wow.
Once again, discipleship is needed. A follower of Jesus means
Yes.
different things to different people, but from moving from identifying as skeptic or other faith or different to wanting to be a follower of Jesus, that's exciting.
Yes.
It's beautiful. So yes, I would say any faith background is welcome. Just my most recent Alpha course at the YMCA that I ran, it wasn't with students. Well, actually, he was a student. It was with my body combat class. And he was at Embry-Riddle Flight School, and he was from a Hindu background, and he had so much to share. And he had a really amazing encounter with God in prayer. He had to leave and go back home before it was over, but I'm still praying for him because I know that the Lord cares for him.
Yes. Wow, that's so powerful. I know, Pam, you hosted in your faith center on campus, and then other groups host in homes or churches. Is there an ideal location where people to host, or have you seen, Pam, how did it work like at the faith center? And you'd said even the time away at your home, did you feel like those felt different? Just curious about like location.
For sure. So where the Faith Center is, it used to be a church building, and now it's part of I'm near a private secular university. So it kind of looks like a Catholic church a little bit, because the Catholic ministry shares it with the Protestant ministry. And so we met kind of in the fellowship area. So sometimes people are coming, like walking through there, which isn't super ideal, but yet it's also like, this is a space where everybody's welcome. So in other respects, it is nice. We've had super simple food, like literally juice and cookies and nuts and like super simple food, and they grab it and they come and sit down at the table. So it's hospitality, but it's just really simple. And having the time at my house was such a nice difference. I live a little ways off campus, so we couldn't do that all the time, of course, but yeah, having something different was really great. It was a good mix up. The thing that was fascinating to me about that weekend away, and you kind of touched on this, Michelle, is that the day I kept saying to them, thanks for coming to my house. Like, thanks for stepping out of the norm of what you normally do in a week or in a semester. And they kept saying, thank you for inviting us into your house. Like, thanks for inviting us here. This is so amazing to be here together off campus and doing something like this. So both spaces have been good, but I think the combination is really nice. This next week when we go and have dinner together, like this is closing out the semester, we're going to be in the cafeteria. So
Fun.
that'll be different, like sitting in the midst of whoever walks by. And so yeah, that'll be kind of fun. That'll be a different kind of thing, is what is this group of people gathered together at a table sitting and talking? You know, it creates a different optic kind of for other people who may know these guys from classes or program or whatever. So I like the combination of all those things.
Yeah, that's really great. Michelle, I'd love to hear your insights too, but Pam, I love how they went to your home and now you're kind of going to their, cafeteria home. But we found that too with college students. A part that the church can really play is that intergenerational connection, and they are hungry to be invited into homes. It's like the most fatherless generation that we've ever had, a lot of just brokenness. And so to be with a family or a couple of families in a home is like, they just want to be around that, and it's comforting to them and to see how a family operates. So I love that they had the opportunity to join you there. But yeah, Michelle, anything you'd add about
Yeah,
that?
I'd say the beauty of Alpha that I found over the 2 decades that I've been able to run it in different spaces, it really can be run anywhere. There's no wrong place. The only things I would think through when you're thinking of, is this the good location? Is if it's a public space, do you have the time that you want to not be rushed out? So I know some alphas with students that are run in Starbucks, but those students or that campus minister, they're known to that Starbucks. And so they're like, sure, chill at that big community table for as long as you want. So it works well there because relationship, right? I've tried to run it in public places before where it just was too noisy and you didn't feel like you had the ability to sit and talk afterwards, because it's more important to have that time of discussion than just checking the box of watching a video, because anyone can do that anywhere. You can watch a video on your phone, right? And not engage with anybody. So make sure you have a space where people can meet together, all hear if you're playing a video, all see, and have plenty of space to interact with afterwards. Churches that decide to run it on campus, the best advice I could give you is think through, if you have never set foot in your building, or have one of your students, maybe have a student that's recently come to Christ, right? Or a student that maybe you are starting to talk to, right? And you've been sharing life with them. They don't quite feel comfortable in your church. Ask them questions. Ask them, is this place easy to find when you come in the first time? What are your impressions? What are your thoughts? You want to think through it. So most of the time we did Alpha in Oxford, in the church that we were a part of. It was in the church building just because there wasn't real estate to do it anywhere else. But we did a lot of work to make sure that there were signs way far out before a student would come to see Alpha, not the name of the church, bigger, because they had been invited, hey, try Alpha, right? And when they walked in, someone's there waiting for them to bring them directly to a table. And maybe the stuff that's on the table doesn't look like a churchy setting. There's not going to be announcements ahead of time about the prayer service that's happening or the rest of the campus ministry that work. It's just Alpha for an hour and a half where you're invited to have a meal, to listen to a discussion. Your time is respected, so you're not stuck there all night long and you're free to go. So you can do it in a church space. Just make sure that church space feels comfortable for a person that's never been in a church before. And for the whole 9 to 11 weeks that you run it, you're maybe making that space look and feel different than what it would normally look like for a ministry event.
Those are really good insights. Pam, you had another thought too?
Yeah, when we, like the first week I went to go set up, we were originally going to meet in the small chapel in this faith center, and I recognized that the small chapel was it's used a lot by the Catholic ministry, and I realized that there might be rules about having food in there. And so I asked the administrator, and sure enough, we were not allowed to have food in there. And so I thought, this isn't going to work. We can't do this in there. It'll be private, so there's not interruption, but but it's not going to work because it's not going to feel hospitable. Also, it's exactly what you said, Michelle. There's all of the things around. Like, this is not a space that someone who's exploring is necessarily going to walk into and just be really comfortable. And so we moved it out to the tables, which is right in the middle of the building. And it's a lot more accessible and it's a lot more distractible. And we have people walking through, but we can sit at the table with our juice and our cookies, and it feels like we're coming to the table. And so absolutely, the location was crucial in the midst of that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's good. I love the emphasis on hospitality and just the invitational, in considering all those things of if you're brand new, never been a part of this culture or space, how to welcome you in well. That's really beautiful. So Jesus's heart. I know we just have a few minutes left, but continue to put your questions in the question and answer. And Michelle put in some prayer resources, a link to that in the chat as well. I'd love to know if you feel like there's like what would an ideal size of a group be, or is there like too small or too big, like size wise? What do you think works best?
Yeah, I mean, our general rule is you don't want any larger than 12. And that 12 would include, at the very minimum, one host and one helper. And I've said that a couple of times. That's in the training. Your host is the person that's really running, asking the questions after the video. They're making everyone feel welcome from the beginning. They're asking questions. They're facilitating discussions. They're not answering questions. That's one thing we don't do in Alpha. We don't answer people's questions because the video will answer the big questions of faith every time. The helper is the person who we say is as quiet as the quietest person in the group. And the reason for that person is there might be someone that doesn't feel like they want to, or they're afraid to participate, but they really want to be there. So you're giving that person encouragement. Hey, there's other people just like you that are just there. And that person is praying, silently the whole time. They're also watching nonverbal things. If someone needs something, if they're out of food, or if they can't see, or if they got really upset when someone else was talking, they're kind of scanning the group for the night, and then they can feed back to the host afterwards and really pray specifically for the next week before that person comes. So you want a host and a helper at the very least, one of each. And then I would say a max of 10 people besides that host and helper. You get too much, any bigger than that, really, it's really hard for everybody to feel like they can share if they want to. Now, you do tend to have some attrition. I know we're running low on time. And so a lot of times people can't stay the whole 10 to 11 weeks. And that's one of the freedoms you give people. Come try Alpha for a week. Right? It can feel really daunting to say, sign up for a course for the next 11 weeks. Students like, whoa, what is this? Right? Come try it for a week, see if you want it. Because of that, you might lose 1 or 2 people, or their semester gets busy. So if you have up to 12, it means if you lose 3, you still have a good group of people that are having discussions, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's great. Would you say there's a better time, Pam, to run Alpha, like in the start of the year, middle, start of second semester? Is there like for the college student calendar, you've noticed like a
Yeah,
better
we
time?
started the second week of classes because that just worked for the schedule, and we barely had enough time by the end of the semester to get the things done because we didn't meet during Thanksgiving week, we didn't meet during fall break week. So that meant that that worked out. At the beginning of the semester, it was busier because some of the guys had different activities. I live in Florida, so there's lots of things outside. Yeah, that was okay. And we also had to change the time that we met in the middle of the semester because I had just picked a time. And then when we had a group of students that were showing up regularly, there was a different time that worked better. So we just changed the time, and that worked out better. So we did that halfway through the semester. So another thing about time is I wish that I would have given myself more time for length of time. If you have a dinner, obviously you need more time, but I think it talks about like having an hour and a half, and we had an hour, and I felt like I was always butting up to the time. So, yeah, even if I think next semester, I'm just going to tell them we're going to meet for an hour and 15 minutes at the minimum, just so we have more time. And I need a helper. I need somebody to come alongside me. That's huge. And I didn't know the students at the beginning, so I didn't even know who to ask, but it's huge to have somebody else to come
Mhm.
alongside to pray. Like all those things are just crucial.
Yeah. How fun. It sounds like you might have one of those four gentlemen for the next round. That's beautiful. I know we just have a minute left. I would love to, if you guys just have any like last encouragement, I would love for you to share it. But also I know Alpha has a training tomorrow. Actually, I'll put the link in the chat, December 7th, to get started. And then we have our Fusion USA Fusion USA website as well. If you'd like to stay connected with us, our next webinar will be January 10th, and it will be about sharing leadership with Gen Z, and why college students can help lead your church and how to let them do it well. We have a couple of friends from the UK joining us, who have kind of a student church plant. They're great. So that'll be January 10th. But yes, Pam and Michelle, any last words of encouragement or a blessing you'd like to share over the group? And thanks everyone for joining.
Keep doing what you're doing, guys. We are just cheering you on.
Yeah.
You are making a difference for Christ. You're making a difference in these students' lives, and just being present for students will make a difference for Jesus. So
Yeah.
I'm behind you. We're behind you all the way, and cheering for you and praying for you.
Yeah, so good. Pam,
I'm
anything?
really excited. Yeah, I'm really excited about just the possibility of Alpha on the campus. But also, we kind of mentioned this, Michelle even touched on it, just the possibilities for discipleship within our churches, even intergenerationally, the possibility for people who have attended church, even maybe all their lives, to grow deeper in their faith. And like we talked about, to really experience the person of Jesus, the Holy Spirit, who God is and love, like to experience that in their lives. The church needs that. It's exciting.
Yes. So good. Thank you both so much. This was really, really helpful, and I hope gives, I trust gives vision to those who are listening and those who are watching back. I really appreciate your hearts and all you're doing. And thank you everyone for coming, for watching. And Michelle, if they have any questions, is it all right to share your contact information in our
Absolutely.
follow-up?
Reach out. We'd love to
Amazing.
have this journey. Yeah.
We will do that. Thank you, everyone. Have an awesome, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.